Hi there, my name's Ben, and today I want to talk to you about the biggest achievement that I've accomplished within the past couple of years. And that is losing 130 pounds between May 5th, 2021 and July 21st, 2022. I'll give you a little bit of background on it. When I hit puberty, I gained a bit of weight, puppy fat and all that. I hit massive growth spurts. When I was younger, pre-puberty, I was always fairly short, but kind of skinny still, but I was always very heavy. I don't know why. But then all of a sudden, I got wider and blew up, got kind of fat, but then I would grow in height to sort of compensate for it. So I'd look skinny again, and then I'd keep going from fat, tall, fat, tall, fat, tall. And then eventually I got to university. And for the first couple of years, it wasn't too bad. Tried not to drink as much alcohol, and I tried not to overindulge and all of that, but I had no clue about eating. I had no clue about nutrition, nothing at all. And then in my third year, that's when I got off campus, that's when shit really started going downhill. I gained a lot of weight fairly quickly. And I was around the same weight that I'm at now, my second year, so around 220 pounds. That ballooned up to around 300 by the time I started my fourth year. And eventually that got to around 330 pounds. That's what I would hold at until I was at my absolute heaviest just fairly recently before I started last May, and I was 350 pounds. All throughout the time that I was around 330 pounds or thereabouts, there were a couple of times where I tried to lose it. When I was working in the fitness industry, I had a personal trainer for a little bit, started seeing some results, cleaned up my nutrition a little bit. That's sort of where it all started. The knowledge was there, but I chose not to apply it. It wasn't a priority for me. I was in a state of it's not that bad. I'm not that fat. I can change it if I want to. The classic platitudes that everybody gives. I had a really weak mindset at that time. And so eventually what precipitated my my journey, I guess, was in 2019. I had a gallbladder attack. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's when a gallstone. So the gallbladder is right. So the computer's covering it a little bit. So it's right close to your liver, inside your liver actually, and it's filled with bile, and bile helps you to digest stuff. But sometimes you can get stones in there. And what had happened was that a bunch of small ones tried to go through the bile duct at the same time, and I was in excruciating pain. That was pretty bad. Ended up in the hospital. Had a second attack a year later in the middle of the pandemic, and then I got my gallbladder removed. And then what happened then was that I thought to myself, okay, this is the main problem of why I'm not feeling well. And I had a bunch of other health issues too. I had really, really bad heartburn. I spoke about this in another video, but there would be times where I would wake up and I'd have stomach acid shooting out of my nose. Naturally, this meant that my sinuses got irritated, and I kept getting sinus infections, and I was always prone to them as a child. But again, I didn't drink as much water. I certainly didn't exercise, and I was not watching what I ate at all. I was consuming a fair bit of alcohol. I smoked still. And ultimately what happened is that once I got it removed, I thought, okay, you know what? This is, all my problems are solved. Everything will sort itself out. Then it was shortly after that I weighed my heaviest, because again, I took that as I can eat whatever I want and go back to enjoying my life. And then I started noticing a couple of things, not just the standard gamut of the heartburn and of the sinus infections and the sweating a lot and everything. I thought, I'm drinking my water, everything's fine. But I noticed that I wasn't getting as good, like my sleep wasn't as good. A couple of other symptoms, like I was starting to feel always really thirsty. My tongue was going a little white. In any event, I was really afraid that I had diabetes, that I was going to develop diabetes. So I did some blood work, and essentially they found out in April of 2021 that my glucose levels were fairly high, and I was essentially right on the cusp of being pre-diabetic. And that, for me, when I found out that news, I completely the mindset changed. I said, okay, no, like I have to lose this weight. So I contacted an old friend of mine, someone who again I've known for a long period of time. Known him for, I'd say, just around 15 years or so, over 15 years. And he helped me he put me on game. He helped me sort of make this plan, and which I'll share with you all now. And essentially, I started adding more stuff onto my routine, and eventually, 63 weeks later, I clocked in at my goal weight, which was 220 pounds. So that's quite a lot of background, but it is very, very necessary as to provide you with that context. When I was at my heaviest, my mindset wasn't where it was now. I was always I always have been a very gregarious individual, someone who loves to talk, to eat, to drink, to socialize. You can do a little bit too much of the eating and drinking, which I found out. But more so, like I said, my mindset was very weak. I was not satisfied with myself. I wasn't satisfied with how my body looked. I wasn't satisfied with how my body was physically very weak, despite being so large. But there was also a thing that I was thinking of. I said, look, I don't want to live like this anymore. I have to make a change. Clearly something is not working. So that's what the spur was, along with, of course, the fear that I could become a diabetic. That was the main driver, I would say, is just to get my health in order. But it really became something else. It became now this path that I'm on right at this moment, which is to do my absolute best to be a better person, do my absolute best to be as strong as I can be, both physically and mentally, to prepare myself to be as strong as I can be financially, and essentially to max out my potential as best as I can. And I have to say, I'm really stoked and lucky that and grateful that I am on this path now. And I'm very, very not just proud of myself for having achieved my goal, but I'm very, I am very grateful that I did have some sense in order to get my health together and consequently getting my life together. So, how did I do it? Well, there's three main tools, three main ways that I was able to accomplish this goal. First goal was an aggressive caloric deficit. So, like I said in the beginning, I didn't know the first thing about about food. I didn't know the first thing about nutrition, counting macros. From working in the fitness industry, you pick up a couple of things here and there, but I had never applied it. I had never thought to apply it because I didn't think that I needed it. And then consequently, I end up looking like that. So that was actually not me at 350. That was me my first week in, where I lost 9 pounds. But then, of course, I end up looking like I am now. So I'll throw that picture up there one more time just so that way you can see it. But getting back to it, I went back to an aggressive caloric deficit. I calculated, with the help of my friend, what I should be eating, and that ended up being 2,100 calories, 2,100 calories a day. And I ate that way for the majority of my cut. I would weigh in every week. Eventually, I weighed in every day just so that way I got a little bit more accurate reading. But an aggressive caloric deficit was the backbone for it as well. I noticed that I did start to plateau in around the turn of the year. And so in January, I decided to cut my calories again, down from 2,100 to around 2,000. And then after a couple months of that, I cut it again. So I cut it down to about 1,900. Then after a couple months of that, I cut it down to 1,700. And eventually for the last 8 weeks, those last 8 weeks, so which was essentially June and July, I was eating 1,500 calories a day, which was not ideal. That was essentially a starvation diet. I was drinking a lot more coffee to suppress my appetite. I did smoke more as well, so that because nicotine also suppresses your appetite. And I would prioritize, high protein filling foods, and obviously that fit within my calories, I should say. And I also ate high volume foods. So a lot of cucumbers, a lot of watermelon, a lot of puffed rice, low fat, no fat Greek yogurt. But essentially, yeah, all of that to say was that when I stepped on the scale, I was 220 pounds. And then after that, how do you recover from that aggressive caloric deficit? I essentially reversed my diet. I watched a couple of really good videos from Renaissance Periodization, and Dr. Mike, who does all their videos, was a fantastic help and a fantastic resource for me to get back to my maintenance. So now I eat around 2,700 calories a day, and I'm still maintaining my weight, which is great. So how I did it: first off, an aggressive caloric deficit. Second one was sticking to my routine. Now, I've spoken about the importance of routine in a previous video, but honestly, making it a non-negotiable was one of the best things I could have ever done. I don't think I would have been able to continue the cut for so long. I did it for 63 weeks, so over a year, significantly over a year. And it was really, really tough at times, especially when, you're hungry, it sort of becomes that constant hunger in the back of your mind. Especially when I was down to eating 1,500 calories, my brain was always foggy. I always had a headache. I essentially cratered my metabolism, but sticking to the routine, making sure that, weighing all of my food out, calculating all of those calories, calculating the amount of protein, the fat, and carbohydrates that I had, And not just that, but also making sure that, I was getting up at the same time every morning, that I had a routine that I could fall back on. I had certain non-negotiables that I knew were always going to happen. That helped me immensely, especially to the end, where I was starting to get, very, brain foggy and all of that. The third thing that enabled me to successfully complete losing 130 pounds was using the support that I had around me. I did receive a lot of support from my friends, from my family as well. Even though, at times that means that I can't eat as much as I want, which is terrible as well, because my sisters are really good cooks. Not to mention as well that, it means that I might not be as social. I'm not going to be drinking as much, or, because I'm eating so few calories, I'm just too tired to go out and socialize. But I was really lucky that I had a good support system around me. At times it did feel very, very lonely. But having the support of my friends, having the support of my family that was such a big, big help for me in order to be able to accomplish this achievement. So I guess that's how I did it. Those are the three ways or the three main bulwarks as to how I was able to do it. I've kind of touched on why I did it, but I mean, ultimately, it's, what does this mean for the future? Do I just stop now? No, I don't think I ever can stop. I guess this video is almost like a long overdue debrief for that journey. And it had obviously the intended consequence of me losing the weight, and I've managed to keep it off successfully so far. But it also had a lot of unintended consequences. I started this off purely as a health thing, because I didn't want to become a diabetic. And I thought, okay, once I'm down to 220, sure, it's fine, I can start working out. I wasn't super serious about it. But something happened midway through my cut and through this journey, or this section of the journey, and it's almost as though it was a seamless transition from one mindset into another mindset. Now I can't stop thinking about setting a new goal. Now I'm always in that foundational routine now, which I shared in another one of my videos, which is that of goal setting, production, goal achievement, celebration, and rest. I'm always in that cycle now. Routine is now a non-negotiable for me. I have a lot of non-negotiables now. And I think those are a lot of unintended consequences that happened. I mean, conversely as well, because of this of my aggressive caloric deficit and this journey, I've stopped drinking as much. I mean, I used to be the type of person who, and I'm speaking very candidly, would flatten a case of beer at the end of the day, no problem. Now I can't even think about doing that. And it was, on the weekend I had about 10, and my tolerance for it has decreased significantly. Not to mention as well, now I realize, okay, because I was drinking a whole lot in university and not really moving a lot and I wasn't knowledgeable about my nutrition, then I know that if I go back to that, all of my hard work is going to be for nothing, because I'll just end up 350 pounds again, which is, of course, I'm never going back to that. So this almost had the unintended consequence of leading me to okay, stop drinking as much, stop smoking as much, except for that little period in the near the end where I sort of needed to smoke. in order to stave off my hunger. My relationship with food has changed in the sense that, I mean, I've not to knock it out, I've always been a pretty good cook. Now that I know what the caloric value of all of these meals are, and there were restrictions that were put on there, I've created new recipes of stuff that I know is going to be digested well by my body, that my body responds well to. It's not all about taste now. Now I know what feels good and what doesn't when I eat it. I discovered that, I'm more of an animal-based person. My body operates the best and responds the best when I've had red meat, specifically organ meat, or when I don't have as many legumes, because they do have a tendency to bloat me and I get a lot of gas. Now, of course, there were some unintended consequences that were a little bit negative throughout this cut. About 4 weeks in, at the end of May, when I had just started. Of course, keep in mind I was recovering from surgery at this point too, when they took my gallbladder out. That had happened in December of 2020, and I started this in May 2021. I developed a hernia at the incision site in my stomach, which was extremely painful. Thankfully, I got that repaired in March of 2022, by which point I weighed around 250 pounds. So I was already 100 pounds lighter than I was at the time that I had the surgery. And so far, so good. It seems to have healed fairly well. There's no recurrence. But again, that was a pretty big stumbling block that happened pretty early on. But again, it could have been a massive banana peel, I should say, but it wasn't. If anything, because it was so painful, because I had a lot of fat in and around my abdomen, it helped to spur me on and say, okay, if I lose more weight, it's not going to push out as much, and once I get it repaired, there's less chance of the wound reopening. And for those of you who don't know what a hernia is, it's a weakness in your abdominal wall. So let's say if this is your abs, so to speak, and there's a hole in there. There's a hole in the wall where bits of your intestine or sometimes some fat to push out, and the only thing that's stopping it is your skin. So what they have to do is they have to close it up, put some mesh to reinforce, and then that's that. So that could have been a banana peel for me, but it wasn't. If anything, it gave me more motivation. What's another sort of stumbling block that happened? There wasn't really much that went wrong. I would say it's more so sometimes the change in mindset, and sometimes I came at odds with stuff that I thought that I wanted to do. Let's say go out and socialize and have fun and not care about what I put in my mouth, not have to calculate it, not have to budget the calories, so then that way I can go out and afford, because that sometimes was a drag. I think it was the most difficult part for me was, there would be times where, let's say, I would go away for a weekend, and I wouldn't count anything. I would do my best to not overdo it, but I'd have a couple of days, 2-3 days, where I wasn't as consistent with it. And of course, I noticed a big difference, because obviously my body's water has changed and everything like that. It wasn't any real fat, but remember there was one time we still joke about it, me and my friends. I gained 21 pounds in water weight, essentially overnight. So I was around 250, and then I stepped on the scale when I got home. I was 270, and this is after finally going to the bathroom after the weekend, and I nearly had a heart attack. called my friends and was like, this is absolutely unbelievable. They didn't believe me. I showed them a picture of the scale. So it's, I don't know, it's sort of like a funny little anecdote. But I mean, my mindset at that time was, I was so focused on the number. I was focused on like, okay, like I have to, this is a non-negotiable. I have to hit 220. And there were times where it was tough, where I was plateauing. And, you know, where, I mean, again, you can only cut so many calories. I honestly wouldn't recommend going as far as I did, just because, again, even though it does work, I mean, mentally and physically, it was grueling. It was extremely grueling. And it was to the point where, you know, in consultation with my friends, I was talking with my family too, and they're like, you might have to stop this, even though you're not within your goal weight, that you haven't reached it. And I was really, really upset about that because I was so fixated on the number. But then they told me, look, you've already lost over 100 pounds. Who cares if you're going to stop at 230 instead of 220? And I said, I would care. I would care. This is a goal that I've set to myself. I'm not stopping until I reach that number, which is probably not the best way to go about it, but hey, I ended up eventually doing it, so I can say that I'm vindicated. I think for me, the best thing that could have come out of this is that now I know the type of person that I am. Like when you're hungry and when you put yourself through that manageable suffering, when you're suffering willingly through it, and it's not easy, and you are alone for a lot of it, even though you have a wonderful support system around you, I get to reading, and there would be times where I would look at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person at first, but then, you know, the more that I continue, the more that I realize, like, yes, this is I'm becoming the person that I was supposed to be. Not just about how I physically look, but I mean how I approach the world, and how anybody can do this. Everybody has that lion inside of them. Everybody has the capacity to be a god. Everyone has this esoteric power that's within them to be able to bend their life in such a way and to change it for the better. And that's the one thing that is perhaps maybe even a bigger achievement than actually losing the 130 pounds, was that my biggest achievement probably was the fact that I discovered the path that I've always been on, but now I'm out of that dark forest, and now I can see where I'm going. So, that said, I would have to say this. It's been a thoroughly long overdue debrief, is what I wanted to say. This video has been a long time coming. It's something that I didn't necessarily know how to approach it. I don't think I was ready for the debrief, especially when I had a lot of other stuff on the go, and starting this YouTube channel was kind of a part of it. And so, recording those videos, and then now I'm starting to exercise as well and add more things onto my routine. And ultimately, I think that the lessons I learned I'm vindicated for the decisions that I made over those past 63 weeks. I think it did pay off in spades. I'm a healthier person now. I'm a stronger person now. And if you found this useful, camera cut out there, sorry. So feel free to take this, if this has helped you, feel free to take this, blueprint of an aggressive caloric deficit, sticking to the routine, and using the support around you. Of course, if you do have questions about it, you can feel free to comment on this video or to reach out to me directly. It's something along these lines, is that I wanted to make this not just to flex and just be like, hey, look at me, this is my biggest achievement, but also to show that everybody can do this. And it's all a matter of if you want to do it, and you should want to do it more than anything. And you have to realize that, you have to do this ultimately for yourself, not just for other people. Other people will benefit. I started off doing this for myself. I ended up continuing doing it for my people. I ended up continuing to do it for my family, for my friends, for you guys, for the people who I have met before and for the people that I haven't met yet. This is, for me, something that is going to stick with me for the rest of my life. No one can take this away, and I'm certainly not going to take it away from myself. This section of the journey has been an absolute pleasure to be on, and I'm excited for the future, and I'm excited for what it brings, mainly because, like, again, now I'm actually preparing another weight loss section. It's not going to be as nuts as the one that I just completed. It's probably going to be about, I want to get down to 200 pounds, and then I'll maintain again, and then eventually get down to 180 pounds, about where I should be. And hopefully now with the exercise, now that I know how to eat and and I have a routine now, I have certain non-negotiables, that it's going to be an easier time. And how thankfully my metabolism's recovered, so it won't take me 63 weeks to lose all that weight. My body's going to respond really well to it, and yeah, I think that it's going to be fun. So if you want to see that, I'm considering recording that part of the journey. So if you want to see it, let me know down in the comments below. Like I said, if you have any questions, if this inspired you to do it, or just if you got a hot take about it, just feel free to drop it down in the comments below. And again, I just have to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being a part of this journey. And I really hope this helped. Thanks again for watching.